Hello, and welcome to Ask a Historian with Heritage Mississauga. I'm Matthew Wilkinson, historian with Heritage Mississauga. And each week we invite you to send in your questions and things you're interested about or curious about in regards to local history and local heritage. And we'll have some fun exploring the history of the city of Mississauga together. Also, this week, in these days of COVID, many things have come to be canceled, and this week was to have marked the annual Lakeview Library Block Party, which is a fantastic local event put on by the hardworking folks at the Lakeview Branch Library, and just become one of our favorites each year to participate in, both as Heritage Mississauga and also through Thompson's Company, or the 2nd Regiment of York 1812 reenactors have made it an annual trip to be part of the Lakeview Block Party. And so unfortunately this year the Block Party is not to be, but one of the neat things about connecting to the moments in time and those things that we look forward to in the calendar each year. With Ask a Historian this week, we had a couple of questions from asking about things in Lakeview. So we do get to wander down memory lane a little bit, connecting to the Lakeview community here this week. So again, with Ask a Historian, please send in your questions and let's have some fun exploring local history together. Thank you. Our first question this week on Ask a Historian is from Lynn, who's exploring the community in which she calls home down in Lakeview, and specifically on the name origin of Dita Road and the property history, the greater property history around it. Thank you, Lynn, for the question, and thank you for exploring Lakeview with us. Dita Road is located on part of a historic property known as Lot 5, Concession 2, South Dundas Street. The property was first granted, the larger property, the farm parcel, was first granted by the Crown on June 5th, 1817 to Edward McMahon, who in turn sold it in 1823 to John Pauley. That property remained in the Pauley family for over 30 years. Presumably there would have been some improvements on the property, but we really don't know a lot about the Pauley ownership. In 1853, the property passed to William Pauley. We don't know the relationship, but presumably father to son, we're not sure. And William Pauley immediately leased the property to Michael Crawford. Shortly thereafter, the property was sold by the Pauleys to Samuel Boys Smith, who is the son of Colonel Samuel Smith. The property at that point was part of a much larger tract of land, spanned both sides of the Etobicoke Creek, all the way from Middle Road, or the QEW, southwards down to Lakeshore. So quite a vast tract of land controlled by the Smith family. And on the other side of the border in Etobicoke, you'll find Sam Smith Park as well, and the same connection, although in that case named for the father, not the son. So Samuel Boys Smith, living on the Etobicoke side, but nonetheless owning property here in the Lakeview area of historic Mississauga, and his estate, when he passed away, Reginald Ball purchased Lot 5 from the estate in 1882, and in turn sold 33 acres to Robert Francis Frank Duck on December 22nd, 1885. So Duck plays an integral role in the story of this property. And the road name itself connects to the Duck family. The patriarch of the family, William Duck, and his wife Mary had 8 children. First of all, step back. They arrived in Canada in 1850 from Yorkshire, England, and they were originally employed on the Cawthra property nearby, near Cawthra Road in Dundas, and they were engaged with clearing land and managing the Cawthra farm. William Duck was a tenant farmer on the Cawthra property and raised swine, hogs, pigs, and racehorses. And one of his horses, named Floss, or Flossie, but Floss is the official name, actually won the Queen's Plate in 1871. So quite a remarkable feat for a local farmer. But yes, Floss, a filly, victorious at the Queen's Plate in 1871. As I was saying, William Duck and his wife Mary had 8 children: Martha, John, Thomas, Hannah, Jenny, Elizabeth, William Jr., and Robert Frank. And it's Robert who continues on the family line in the farming area here in historic Mississauga in the Lakeview area. It was Robert who purchased the 33 acres back in 1885. In addition to racehorses, the family also raised Yorkshire, Berkshire, and Essex swine, and collectively known as the Lakeview Herd, and 2 words in Lakeview in that reference. In 1904, a prize boar from the Duck Farm was crowned grand champion at the St. Louis World's Fair. I mean, you talk about accomplishments far and wide, quite exceptional for a local farm. The Ducks were always highly involved also in what was first known as the National Livestock Show in Toronto, which in 1922 became the Royal Winter Agricultural Fair. The Duck family, through Frank's son, John Duck, also operated a tourist camp on this property, and it was this property from John Duck that was purchased in 1919 by Henry Ardaugh for purposes of subdivision. As I was saying, in 1919, Ardaugh purchased 15 acres from the Duck from John Duck, and he planned to develop a small residential community or subdivision on the north side of Lakeshore Road and east of Dixie Road near the Etobicoke Creek. Well, it became known as the Ardmore Plan, named after Henry Ardaugh and his company interests. The streets in the subdivision were named Orchard Hill Road, Cherry Bell Road, and Dita Road, all of which connect to either the Duck family directly or things that they were engaged with on the property, orchards and cherry trees and the like being referenced there as well. The that road network was laid out and registered in 1922, and Dita Road is named for John Duck's daughter, Dita Duck. And so there you have a kind of a short history, if you will, of land ownership right up to the creation of the subdivision, which was registered in 1922, and most particularly how the Duck family is remembered, and principally that of John Duck's daughter, Dita Duck, in the name of Dita Road. So, Lynn, thank you for the question. Hopefully that answers your curiosity, and look forward to sharing more stories of history of not only Lakeview, but of course wider Mississauga as well with you in time. So thank you very much, and appreciate the time. Our next question is from BD, and exploring their community and the connections to a road name, namely Ogden Avenue. You're asking if there was a medical connection to it, and yes, there is, but we'll get to that. It's not a direct question, and not a direct reference to the medicine at the time. Very simply, Ogden Avenue takes its name from the Ogden family. It's an old road and in an old area of Mississauga, but we can reference directly back to Joseph Ogden Jr., who was lived between 1762 and 1844. His father was a doctor, but Joseph Jr. was not. And he was born in Pennsylvania, Joseph Jr., and together with his family came to Canada in 1798, and they were loyalists, United Empire loyalists, and they settled in Etobicoke. In 1831, as the son of a loyalist, Joseph Jr. Obtained a land grant here in historic Mississauga, so his association with the geography of this area down in Lakeview comes in 1831. And there's also a connection to another early settling family, and that would be that of Jacob Cook of Cooksville. One of Joseph Jr.'s daughters, Anna Ogden, married Jacob Cook, and so those two early prominent families are entwined. When Joseph Jr. In Lakeview passed away in 1844, his property was inherited by his son William Jones Ogden, and continued the family farm at that point. And so when we look at kind of the family, it's a multi-generational story. There are a number of avenues that we can go down, but the son William Jones Ogden and his wife Rebecca Ann Ward continued to work the family farm in Lakeview, and they also set up a hotel, one of the earliest hotels. And there is some suggestion that the name Lakeview comes from the hotel, which was at one point known as Lakeview Hotel, two separate words. But he served, William Jones served a number of early positions in the community, called one of them being Commissioner of Repairs to Bridges and a Justice of the Peace. He also served in the York County Militia, and it's also believed that he either ordered or was responsible for building the first bridge over the Etobicoke Creek on what is now Lakeshore Road. William and Rebecca had 10 children. So again, William is the second generation on the property after his father, Joseph Jr. The 10 children: Uziel, Hannah, Emma, William Winslow, Jehu, Jesse, Isaac, Albert, Azariah, and Joseph. And this is where we get back into the medical connections to this family. Three of the sons, Uziel, William Winslow, and Jehu, all became medical doctors, graduating from Victoria School of Medicine in 1849, 1860, and 1868, respectively. There's quite an age gap between those brothers. And the sons themselves all entered practice. They all explored education as well with Victoria College and the University of Toronto. Uziel lived in Toronto, practiced in Toronto, lived in Rosedale. Jehu practiced in historic Mississauga in the Cooksville area, and William Winslow practiced also in Toronto near Queen and Spadina was where he lived and where his office was. Another of the brothers, Albert, went into the legal practice, and after working for a time in the Cooksville area, he moved up to Brampton and became a barrister and solicitor. And so you have quite an interesting kind of these connections in this family. It's very a prominent farming family who has some prominent sons in medical and legal professions. Dr. Uziel Ogden particularly became well known for his study of internal medicines at the University of Toronto, and he accepted a position as chair of midwifery at Victoria College, which specialized in diseases of women and children. Uziel is probably the most well-known of the Doctor brothers, and he continued teaching and lecturing in a career that spanned over 50 years, so quite a remarkable career. He engaged prolifically in medical journalism and was a founding editor of the Canadian Journal of Medical Science. His middle brother in the group, Dr. William Winslow Ogden, also practiced, he practiced as a local doctor, but he also taught at the University of Toronto, also from the Toronto Medical Academy, the Knox College, the Victoria College, Toronto School of Medicine, and the University of Toronto, and considered to be one of the leading medical experts and practitioners in Toronto. In 1869, he was appointed lecturer on jurisprudence and toxicology at the Toronto School of Medicine, and in 1887, with the creation of the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Toronto, he was appointed a professor of forensic medicine, toxicology, and medical psychology, and he served in this position for 22 years. And just, he's a really well-known doctor, as is his brother Uziel. And then the other medical brother, Jehu, was a family doctor, a rural country doctor in the Cooksville area, and rose to quite some local prominence and local recognition in terms of caring for those here in historic Mississauga. So the Ogden family, after whom Ogden Road is named. Ogden Road is a very early subdivision that came about with subdivision plans from the Ogden property back in the 1920s, and Ogden Avenue takes its name again from the family who lived in this area. Not directly named for a doctor, but certainly remembering those of the medical profession that were in this remarkable family. And so thank you for your question, BD, about exploring a road name in your community, and namely that of Ogden Avenue, and named likely for Joseph Ogden Jr., but also his three medical grandsons. And just a fascinating element in which our history peeks through on the modern landscape. So thank you. Hi, our next question on Ask a Historian is from Zonta Girl, and asking about the story of the Second World War prisoner of war camp at the Cooksville Brickyard here in Mississauga. And yes, indeed, we were home to a couple of work camps associated with the Second World War. Some were connected to the War Measures Act and the internment of Japanese Canadians, and another, as you reference, was connected to German prisoners of war. During the Second World War, there were prisoner of war camps set up across Canada, multiple numbers of them. Many were in Northern Ontario, some were a little closer to the GTA. One of them was known as Camp 22 in Mimico. And the Camp 22 was more associated with kind of civilian prisoners associated with German operations, namely that of merchant marine sailors or seamen. A work camp in an offshoot of Camp 22 was established in historic Mississauga at the Cooksville Brickyard, where it is now near the intersection of Mavis Road and Dundas Street. This work camp at the Cooksville Brickyard housed merchant marine sailors or seamen from Germany and Poland that were captured in German vessels just off of Halifax. Any number of between 4 and 6 vessels were captured over the course of the war in the vicinity of Halifax, and those merchant marine seamen were then sent to prisoner of war camps. They seemed to be rather luxurious in terms of being a prisoner of war. They had a great deal of freedom. They were paid a nominal wage for the labor that they were taking part in. They were given some freedoms in the community, including being able to purchase items for themselves, purchase food, purchase cigarettes and the like from the general store. They joined sports teams. Some of the prisoners joined sports teams. Some were quite musical. There's a story from a couple of German prisoner of wars of joining a choir and playing musical instruments. And in fact, it was considered they were guarded, if guard is the right term, by veterans of the First World War. But those guards, if you will, were more like chaperones. They were not armed. The prisoners were not seen as a flight risk, and indeed we don't have any stories of prisoners trying to escape from the Cooksville Brickyard. We could stand to be corrected on that, but to date we haven't heard or seen any stories of that. And given that these weren't military prisoners, again they were civilians engaged with the Merchant Marine during the Second World War, there was not it was not viewed to have a great deal of threat. Barracks were built at the Brickyard to house the workers. They would later become housing units for new immigrants to Canada. A great deal of Italian workers who would come to work at the Brickyard, but a number of the buildings there were built to house German prisoners of war. Anywhere between 50 and 62 prisoners were held at the Cooksville Brickyard over the course of the war. Again, although they had a great deal of freedom, they were still prisoners, and at the end of the war, they were all returned to Europe. Again, most were German, but there were some Polish and Hungarian as well within that mix. We do have a couple of stories of prisoners who returned to Canada, following the war, obviously drawn by the people and the place and the like to be in Canada and to set up lives for themselves. But nonetheless, that's in brief a story associated with a very brief time that Canada was home to a prisoner of war camp during the Second World War. Thank you for your question. Well, thank you for our to Margaret for our next question on Ask a Historian. Margaret is asking about something we referenced last week, and that was some of the gambling houses in the Port Credit area, the dens of vice, if you will, in the 1920s and 1930s. And so there were a few, and it wasn't just Port Credit. Other communities had them. We know a little bits and pieces of some of the other communities. There's something called Rose Villa up in Meadowvale, and there are things down in Clarkson and others. But the kind of the two that are the most famous from a historical sense, both resulting in raids in the 1930s, and we'll talk about that in a moment, were known as the Miami House and Moody's Roadhouse, and they were on Hurontario Street or Highway 10, just around the QEW. And joining me this week is someone who has delved into this a great deal in the past. And so rather than me try to funnel my way through an answer, I thought I would invite John Wilson, past president of the Mississauga South Historical Society, with me here to explore what has a few years ago, John. I know you dug into this like a dog on a bone, and some of the things you were able to uncover. So, how about we take them in order, and let's go on the south side first, and the Miami, and wonder if you can lead us through kind of the story of what you've uncovered regarding this moment in time.
Okay, yeah, it seemed like the gangsters in them days wanted a place, and the QEW was just completed, and it seemed like they wanted a place a few miles outside of Toronto, and Highway 10 was perfect. Center Road was perfect for that. So the there was the Moody's, Bill Moody's house and the Miami house. Now, the Miami house was on the south side. If you go down Hampshire Crescent now, as it is, and it was somewhere in there, and it was quite a large house. I'm pretty sure it was built around 1910. I'm not sure who owned it then, but by the time the 30s came, it was turned into kind of like a gangster house, and the gangster running it was Bill Beasley, who later had Queen's Plate winning horses in the 50s. You know, he'd be on television and all of this, and the pictures, the Queen's Plate and all this. So then, and in the 30s, he had there was, I don't know how many people in there, and there was all this equipment like the roulette wheels, yeah, and things like that. So one night in the 30s, the cops raided it. It was actually they posed as people visiting. There was quite a few of them from Queens Park, and then they seized several gambling equipment and charged. I'm not sure how many people they charged. They apprehended about 62 people that night, and anyways, so they charged Bill Beasley a fine, and the courthouse then was at the Clark Hall here in Port Credit. So they were at the court case. They said, "Well, your fine is total of $700." So he pulls out his wallet and gives them the $700. And I'm telling you, this was a lot of money
Yeah.
in
1930s, in the middle of the Great Depression. So
in the middle of the Depression, 1937. Yeah. Uh, so what I don't know is really how long after the 30s that it was a gambling place, because sometime in the 40s there was a guy named B. Cadeau, I think his name was.
yeah, that's the name. Yep.
Yeah, and he kind of ran it as some type of old age home. There was 7 or 8 patients there, and then later than that, a man got his name was John Cooper, bought it, and it was used then as a regular residence.
Okay.
Yeah,
Talk about a residence with a history. That would have been an interesting one.
that's right. Yeah,
If walls could talk.
yeah.
So on the opposite side, and we were chatting a little bit before this, and I know I've had very little reference about the Miami House. That's been your baby a little bit, but
Yeah.
on the northwest corner was, or not the corner, but the northwest side, near where the house stood, near where Cherubi is today, just north of the QEW
Mhm.
in Ontario, but was a location of Moody's Roadhouse, as it was known. And before we jump into that, John, I just want to share with you a story. It just popped back in my mind, but a former Cooksville resident, the late Bill Higgins, told me a story about Moody's Roadhouse. And as I hope I get it all right, but it was when he was about 12 years old or so. He was hired, a little bit of pocket change in hand for services rendered, and that was to stand at the end of the laneway that led directly from the QEW into Moody's Roadhouse at night with a flashlight, so that the cars coming from Toronto could know where to turn. And so that was he had his own private access off of the QEW for this property. And so but that's known as Moody's Roadhouse. And I know you said you didn't have a lot on Moody's, but what is there anything you remember about it, and what you found?
Yeah, actually, I have an exact date.
Okay.
February the 26th, 39. There was a big raid there. There was all these ones from Toronto. So, like here, there was actually, I think, 1 policeman in all of Toronto Township. Or Port Credit, there was only 1 anyway. So there was. So what they did, it was a late Saturday night. They brought, I don't know how many from Toronto to raid it, and again they posed as people that were visiting. So problem, maybe that 12-year-old was guiding them in off the highway. So and there was 2 steel doors, before that to get in, a steel door and a wooden door. And so they arrested quite a few there. And it was mostly, they got blackjack tables, different speakers. And I remember reading about a radio they had hooked up to New York City to the racetrack. So they were making bets that way. And so the case came to court, and what the lawyer representing them said, he said within 5 years of gambling will be legal in Ontario, and because the rich ones here go to Florida and gamble there, while the poor people here are here all winter to freeze. So that's what he said. So they they weren't fined all that much money in them days. It was like, oh, $10, $20, for being there and all that. It was they seized quite a lot of equipment though.
Yeah.
So, so and like again, I'm not sure how long it remained like that, or who bought it later. And I think it was there for quite a while. Maybe
It was. I know a later owner of it was a lady's name by the name of Henrietta Jennings, and it was
okay.
it was a private home at that point. And in terms of the building itself, we believe it is connected to the Harborne House of the Parker and Robertson families. It's certainly on the same property and in the same vintage, so it would make sense that it is the same house. And but Harborne House, which was a grand kind of country house, becomes the property is purchased by William Moody, by Bill Moody, and this is when the Moody's Roadhouse, the tavern slash den of vice, if you will, came to be. I did recall one story about there, and it might have been the same raid. It might have been a different raid. I don't have the data in front of me, but it involved the story of the doors that you mentioned, and the doors were locked and rather hard to breach. And when they tried to kick in the doors, they were greeted by a very stout metal door that required some effort to open. By the time that they'd opened the door, most of the people inside had exited at the back and had been on their way, and they referred to them as the city's smart set, which indicated that they were businessmen and politicians that had gathered here and made a quick exit. So when the police did arrest people, they weren't arresting basically the cream of the crop, if you will.
No.
Yeah. So. But they both seem to, at least from the newspaper account, just to get back to the question about the roadhouses and these gambling houses, if you will, by the 50s, 1950s, there doesn't seem to be any reference to them. So, well, we don't have hard dates, which might be, by design. They probably didn't advertise the fact that they were open, let alone that they were closing. But by the 1950s, we seem to lose any reference to them whatsoever. There were kind of more reputable places that would have been established. Betting on racehorse, or at least racetrack and racehorses, had taken off with a flourish. And whether or not that was betting, I can't say I'm an expert on the gambling history in the province, but certainly just the reference to them and the knowledge of them seems to pass. And so they existed for a time, kind of in that bootlegging era of temperance and prohibition and illicit gambling and making money off of bets and wagers and horse racing and the like. But those two, the Miami House and Moody's Roadhouse, right at the QW in Her, Ontario, really became these kind of fascinating parts of our story. And you wonder how many locals, we talk about the politicians and the businessmen, but I wonder how many, everyday people, just on the way home from work, might have popped into the Roadhouse and had a pint and threw down some money.
Quite a few, I can tell you that.
I'm sure. It seemed to be quite a popular thing. So with that, thank you, Margaret, for your question. And John, thank you so much for coming on with me. And nice to see you, and glad you're doing well. And in these interesting days of COVID, hopefully there'll be a time in the near future where we're back out and around and talking history in I don't know what the right word is, but face to face or something like that. But thank you for sharing your research with us, John, and the stories of the gambling dens. And Margaret, again, thank you for your question on Ask a Historian.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you again for joining us on Ask a Historian. And the next question we have is from Abna, who is recalling a event from a couple of years ago now. And the question that we received was, do we remember the group that performed at Carasaga? particularly with some cultural songs and one of their own about Canada. And yes, indeed, we do remember it. And thank you, Abna, for connecting with us. And joining me this week are, I guess, those most responsible for that song back at Carasaga. That is Matt Zaddy and Heather Christine, better known or perhaps known together as River North. And it was River North at Carasaga that was performing the song that you're referring to, We Are the North. Amongst many others. And so thank you, Christine Heather and Matt for joining me. Again, the question we had is from a resident who saw you perform and has obviously stuck with them because I think they're referring to something that took place in 2017. So you had a lasting memory, and they were trying to figure out how to find out about you and connect with you. So again, thank you for joining us. And what do you remember about 2017 and the Carasaga?
If I remember correctly, we were performing upstairs on the small little stage they have there. It was the two of us with Joash, right? With our drummer, Joash Paul. And we basically put together sets of as much modern and kind of traditional folk music from Canada as we could. I remember having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But we actually performed, I think that we performed We Are the North with our fellow collaborators who helped to write the song with us, a very special Mississauga artist, The Identity Crisis, and Arlene Pakulin, who is an amazing, both of them are awesome artists. And we sang the song on the main stage, I think, the main
you're
stage
right.
of the Carasaga Pavilion. And basically we wrote that song in honor of Canada's 150th anniversary. And really it was just a song to celebrate the unity in Canada, the cultural diversity, and so many of those integral values that Matt and I had are just really, being raised here in this city. We just wanted to celebrate that diversity and that feeling of inclusivity. And I know that was so sacred to our parents, especially. And that's kind of when Canada was approaching this milestone, 150th. I remember just thinking we need to have a theme song for this. Mississauga is such I feel like a leader in cultural diversity and living together harmoniously. And
like we've one of the most culturally diverse cities in the country. And that's very normal for us because we grew up in a city which it was while we were growing up that cultural diversity really kind of became that much more normal. Like large populations came to Mississauga because they were, I hope, welcome here.
Yes.
And, for us, that's a very normal thing. And when we were sitting down with Paul and Arlene, they're both Filipino. And we were just talking about, the kind of things that we liked about our city, that, that we can have these diverse backgrounds and we can celebrate it together.
yes. So that's really where it came. And we just sat around the table one night and the song wrote itself.
Yeah, like we literally just sat down and we all kind of said what we were feeling about what this community meant to us, and it turned into lyrics.
Yes, and I feel like it's a very powerful affirmation. Like the lyrics are, we are the North, we are the strong, we are together, and we are free. So just when you sing that, it's such an empowering lyric that I feel like it just connects with people. And even through this whole pandemic, I still sing that song. I still want to share it. And we shared it again for Canada Day. And again, we were having more interest in the song again because I do feel that it is a really strong affirmation for the community.
And it's relevant.
I agree, and it's timeless. Just in kind of preparing my own thoughts for this, I listened to it again this morning, and for those of you watching this program, we'll have a link at the end here and below for not only that song but other music from River North. But I find it such a powerful message, and it's uplifting. A lot of songs. A lot of folk songs tend to take that angle of things, of uplifting the spirit. And, I have to commend you for keeping that tradition in a sense. I find your music uplifting. If that
We appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm hardly a music critic, mind you. I'm not. That's not my realm. But I find it. I mean, this is a question again. You've become more or less mainstays, I think, at Carasaga over the years, amongst many other avenues of expression and performance. But again, this is a question that obviously didn't come from this year with Carasaga being canceled. So that song and your performance has stuck with an individual to the point where they finally, they're trying to connect those dots of who it is they saw. And I think like you guys. You're in the community a lot, not only professionally with your job and the different organizations you're connected with, but in your performances. I mean, you are from Mississauga, you're of Mississauga. I think that's just a fascinating thing. And you mentioned that you've got a show that people can connect with coming up on Sunday, was it?
Yeah, we're doing a show, a River North show, in appreciation of one of our sponsors that's been helping us to Nurse Next Door Mississauga. They have sponsored our Celtic Roots show, which is like our Irish Heritage show we always do around St. Patrick's Day, and that wasn't able to happen this year because of the pandemic. So we were talking with them, and they said, well, they know that we've done some performances for seniors in the community, so well, why don't we sponsor some socially distanced performances for seniors? So we wanted to thank them for their sponsorship to help us get back out there. So we put this show on as like an appreciation thing for them. It's Sunday at 7 o'clock. It'll be on, there is a Facebook invite for it, but it'll also be broadcast on both our River North Facebook page and our personal artist pages and personal pages.
They're a home healthcare company, and they're just amazing because they have sponsored so many of our past performances and other performances in the community, really helping us to share arts and culture with Mississauga. And I think they're a model company, that they're patrons of the arts. I think that they just do an incredible service to us, and we're so appreciative. And I would love to see more companies in Mississauga, collaborating together with artists, collaborating with us so that we can help to present more arts and share more arts and culture in the community.
Yeah, especially in a time like this where, the arts has been, physically shut down and trying to find its way virtually.
Yes.
Well, I think, and no, I can understand and appreciate that, and I think hats off to that organization for supporting and promoting, but also to you for looking to give back. And again, as one Mississauga resident, connecting to artists in Mississauga like yourselves, I'm appreciative of what you do, and the voice that you give to Mississauga is just exceptional. And I'm baffled by the talent. I guess that would be, I look at you and I think, how can you pick up a guitar and make that? And so, that's not a world I understand. It's a world I appreciate and love. But the fact that you're giving back in that talent as well. And Matt, you were mentioning on Tuesdays as well, you've got a weekly show. Do you want to talk about
that? Prior to our current circumstances, I have been running like open mic, jam night style events in Mississauga and Peel region in general for about 10 years. And my home base has always been Collins Irish Pub in Streetsville. So that was my Tuesday open mic. And actually got to have dinner on their patio the other day, and it was a welcome home feeling. It was wonderful. But what I did was, when this started, I said, well, I want to try to keep this going in some way. So I've been doing, using Zoom, I've been doing an online open mic that we broadcast to Facebook Live, and it's called the Together at Home online open mic. Yes. And we've been doing that since March. And at the end of March, we've only missed 2 weeks. So we've been doing this solid for, I guess now 3.5 months.
And I want to throw in, my husband volunteers hours every week, unpaid time, to organize, curate that, and to present it to the community. And he'll have about how many artists? 30 artists, 25 artists, local artists each week performing. And so many artists have said to Matt, thank you so much. I've been depressed. I've been very anxious. I've been having mental health issues throughout the pandemic as artists. Like, people don't understand what a hard toll this has been on creatives, and Matt has presented this outlet that has been so important for so many artists, just to use their voice and keep creating. So I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been really helpful to the community, because it's there are some people that do have some people, but I had performers on there who live alone, who saw next to no one other than going for groceries, and this was their weekly welcomed release or comfort or companionship or friendship. So I'd like to think that it's made a real difference in our community. Like when I look at the numbers on Facebook, we usually get for each video, because I mean, there are some people that watch it when it happens and some watch it after,
Yeah.
but according to Facebook, each video has been getting about 1,000 views. So
Yeah.
it's been steadily watched, which is, and like I said, I did this because I wanted it to be something where people could still connect, because that there's something about music that brings us together,
Yeah.
and to be able to celebrate that even in a time like this is important. It's important to keep those things that bind us together.
And I should just throw in, we're looking for community support, definitely, like a sponsor or community foundation, because I think that it brings such a value to our community. Not only are artists participating, but we have thousands of people that are watching it, hundreds of people. So I feel like I'm proud of what you've done.
Yeah, no, I kudos to you, and we'll have links to that as well on this, and hopefully those who have not yet checked it out will become new viewers and new supporters of it, and who knows what the world looks like moving forward. I said I'm good at looking backwards, but prognostication is not my skill.
I got you. Well, I look at it this way. We all have to adapt, and that was kind of my first attempt at adapting. And it's been, like I said, it's been a good thing for the community. And you wouldn't think so, but I've got excited like I do at a real event when I'm doing this. I'm like, ah!
We made the whole basement here is man cave. It's like a studio, and I leave him alone during the day. He's down there. I'm upstairs in my studio, and it's fun to have that. And I'm so happy to see him get excited, and
that's awesome, because it's got to be. I mean, it's a challenge for everyone, but those that I've thought out about it a great deal. Those that make their living or make their engagements through live performances, through being in the public eye. Some people cringe at the thought, but there are those that is their outlet and that is their expression. And this is so hard on so many levels in terms of what we're going through. But to have these outlets are incredible, and I think just very valuable to the community. I'd like to see them continue. Once if, when, how we all get back to whatever we normally do, and what that looks like, and when that happens, who knows? But I think we found new avenues of expression, and new paths of connecting. And those are strengths.
One of the things I found is a lot of creatives that still want to be able to put their stuff out have basically had to educate themselves on a lot of different things in this. Like, it was actually funny. Just yesterday, I finally got the last piece of gear I needed to be able to broadcast in HD, and we have everything professional sound now. So that's why this image of us looks as good as it does. It's
we had to learn.
I'm rocking a mirrorless camera up here with like fancy capture card and interface and all kinds of stuff. So
people don't realize that. Like, it's been for all of us artists, we've had to adapt and evolve and figure out all this tech. Like, we've been hired by the Rose Theater for several live performances, and it's like, whoa, trying to get all the tech going.
Yeah, because I have a decent knowledge of sound, but I've never really had to deal with cameras up until recently. So I want to try to create a quality experience, and it's been a bit of a struggle, but we're learning as we go. Like, I also recently learned how to use editing software, because
video editing.
Yeah, I partnered with the Guitar Shop in Port Credit, and I created like a tutorial video for people to teach them how to make better videos from their phone, because I've had to learn how.
I wanted to touch base as well. I mean, you have there's River North, and as we're talking about, but you have your individual things as well, and not only the shows, but Matt, I know that you've got a few albums under your belt, and I believe I read, I could be wrong, maybe I'm putting my foot in my mouth, but you did an East Coast tour at one point.
Yeah, we did. Actually, it was funny. Heather and I did that tour together as a duo, and we called it the River North Tour.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, we did. In 2017, I put out. I was kind of like the second single for my first record. It was the title track, and we kind of sort of remixed and remade the song. And we did a couple of weeks out on the East Coast, and it was. I had not been back to the East Coast in a long time, because when I was younger, I was playing in like a death metal band, and we did lots of East Coast tours. I think we did 3 or 4. So I hadn't been back out east since probably 2010. So it was wonderful to get back. One of my favorite places in the province is Cape Breton.
Oh
or
yeah.
in the country is Cape
Yep.
Breton.
Yep.
And my when we got well, unfortunately, we didn't get there on that tour just because the routing
Oh,
didn't work. So the next time that we go out, I said to Heather, I said we're going to Cape Breton.
I have a great deal of personal family just outside of Halifax, so
oh,
I do a little town called Shubenacadie. We have
Shubenacadie, cool, right on. Yeah,
there
yeah.
was an exodus of people from Mississauga back in the early '80s that ended up in Shubenacadie. So small
You know,
world sometimes.
it's so
wow.
funny. There are places on the East Coast where a whole bunch of people ended up in Mississauga or Peel region. I
Yeah.
have a whole bunch of friends that I didn't realize until I got here were all from New Waterford way.
And so you have and again we'll have the links at the end to your individual projects as well, and of course to River North. But Heather, you've got your hands in so many different avenues of culture expression. I mean, I first met you working with the Mississauga Arts Council. I think I could be wrong on when we met, but it's way back when. Windmill Theater.
Yes.
You did wasn't it a 1940s a band on the
Throwback show,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We've done a
What,
lot, and I released a debut album last year called Love and Color,
okay.
and that featured original songs that I co-wrote with Matt, and I produced with Anthony Panacci, who's a wonderful local producer right here in the city of Mississauga. And I have a new album, a new single that I launched just on Sunday,
Okay.
and that's an empowerment song called Our Time Has Come. And I have a new video that I launched, and the video actually features over 30 artists from the city of Mississauga
Oh wow.
who have inspired me on my journey. So everything from Mark Kelso, an incredible world-class drummer who lives in the city of Mississauga, who's played with all of the big stars
Yeah.
of music. My wonderful husband Matt Zaddy. I have dancers, professional dancers that were born and raised in Mississauga, violinists, Vera, so many different artists. So I'd love to
Wow.
share that with you also, and just to
Yeah.
get a taste of our cultural scene, and many people that we've stayed connected through this time, and we're surviving and adapting together.
Do you find, I mean, this might be a given, I hate to pigeonhole people, but as creatives, you see the world in often the things that inspire you and shape the way that you respond to things. And maybe that's a collective wrong to put everybody together, but I always find creative people see the world in so many shades of color that perhaps some of us are blind to. But do you find these moments in time inspiring you in that creative process, whether it's by songwriting or the way that you view the work that you're doing? I mean, with the Tuesday thing that you're doing, Matt, I think that's part of that. But in terms of just the creative aspect of writing material, song, are you inspired by what's happening today?
Yeah,
Yeah, we are.
we actually have written. We've. It's been interesting because a lot of our time has been spent trying to adapt, but we have been writing out of that. There
Yes.
was a song that we wrote together, which we were going to be recording very soon. We based the lyrics on a poem actually that Heather's parents wrote called "This Too Shall Pass."
Similar to your article,
Yeah, right.
Matthew.
Yeah. And when we sat down with those lyrics and we kind of put it together, the song came together very, very naturally. And we've performed it online live a couple of times, but we are going to start. The goal is to start recording it this week.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful.
And it's a touch on the melancholy side, but I feel like it very much connects with people because the lyric is saying, like your article, like this too shall pass. It's not a great time we're going through, but it is going to pass. And so it kind of expresses just the emotions that I think many people are grappling with.
And the things that inspire, I'm curious. It's one thing to take kind of I don't know what the right, sometimes we're prone to look at the negative side of things, and particularly in moments of challenge and moments of mass challenge. I mean, economic uncertainty, political, social unrest, like all those things are really uh, uh, strong moments in the challenge that we have within the pandemic itself. But um, this concept of moments that make a difference or things that make a difference, not the negativity, but the positivity, the helping of neighbors. I mean, every night at 7:30 on my street, neighbors go outside and bang pots and pans, and we've been doing that since
Oh,
March. Like we're not alone with that. Like that's just, they're kind of cool things, and you're just like, at some point this will change and this will go back. But these moments that help connect people, and I think what is, I apologize, I'm gonna struggle with it. What's the name of the Tuesday show again, Matt? What is it called again?
Together at Home online open mic.
There we go. Together, but just together at home. I mean, we are at home, a lot of us. I mean, the world is slowly opening up, but the path forward is still a little uncertain. But the we are in this together. We are in this together at home. Whether you want to use, I think there's the hashtag apart together. These messages of hope, these messages of connecting. I think those are all such strong inspirations. And not only yourselves, I'm more curious also just the broader musical world of what will come out of this from that inspiration perspective. I think it might be an interesting.
Honestly, I think you're going to see an outpouring of creative content that's going to come out of this. There's been Heather and I mean, I know I personally have been sometimes up and down with this, but I've been trying to see our best, and Heather and I are pretty good at trying to find the silver lining in this.
Yeah.
And the one thing that keeps coming up is this is not just us, this is everyone.
Everybody.
The whole world has been brought together by this tragedy. Yeah. And it's one of those things that when we move forward from this is the first time we've had something of this magnitude in 100 years.
Yeah.
So this will change the world. It will. Yep. And a lot of what we write about, like Heather and I individually and collectively tend to try to find that silver lining and find the positivity in that. I know in my last record, a lot of the songs were about, trying to, the last single I put out, Brighter Days, was specifically about people going through hard times and how when you're in it, it can feel like you're trapped and there's no way out. But that's when it's most important to remember that there are people in your life that care about you and things can get better. So in general, I think we tend to try to look for that I guess light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure. And I almost
sorry, go on, Chris. Go on, Heather.
Sorry. I almost feel like in a weird way, like the world needs our voice now, because I think that our art addresses these questions of the soul, these existential things that we, all wrangle with. And so I feel like so many opportunities have actually come to us. Most of them, I would say, unpaid. Like artists right now are doing a ton of volunteer work, but I feel like there have been more requests for the music, more requests for the lyric, the poetry, the inspiration, because I feel like as artists, we're good at adapting, we're great at, using whatever we have, and we're creative problem solvers. So I feel like for us, we are surviving and we are adapting, and I feel like artists are good at that. So I feel like it's actually been a time for artists to help the world and help humanity kind of get through this time, and even helping the general public, access their own creativity, access that own side of themselves. Like my husband said, many of the music stores he worked with, they're all recording that their instrument sales and music lessons have all gone up exponentially during this time.
Yeah, I've had a chat with a lot of music stores, and with people being home, everyone seems to be turning to the arts. And it's one of those things, there's some irony here, because at a time where people need the arts more than anything else, it's not always compensated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like right now, everybody is watching concerts online. They're streaming content at unprecedented rates. Yeah. And we're sitting here, we're like, now we just have to either fix the model or build that gap in there to make sure that everyone who's working hard to create is getting compensated for it.
Yeah, no. I'll have to drop just an apology if anybody's picking up background noise on my end. My kids are screaming in the basement right now. So
but you're gonna hear our cat at some point. That's just how this goes.
It is. It's kind of the magic of it. About a couple of weeks ago, I had to pause and restart because the dog started barking behind me. So
honestly, I've had. When I've been making my videos now, I just said, you know what, I'm just going to include the cat in the videos because it's just easier than trying to fix it. I was joking around about it in that tutorial video. I said, you got to figure what you want in your shot. Do you want just, your torso or your instrument, or do you want your cat? And I picked my cat up and started doing a little dance.
Maybe we can close on the thought. I mean, I find the music inspiring, and I hope others will as well. You'll have the links at the end, and then down below you'll be able to click on the links to see the music of Heather Christine and Matt Zaddy and River North, and and connect with them and connect with the open mic on Tuesdays and the show coming up on Sunday. I'm going to check that out. And
Very cool. Thank
you
you.
know, the inspiration or the inspirational not only the music, but I mean, you certainly have cultural themes tying into the music that inspires you and that you write about, but also just the work of connecting, the work of connecting with people and connecting artists to the community, connecting the community to the artists. I mean, that's a two-way street, and you need partners on both ends. And you know, hopefully, we can, as more people are opening up, whatever that looks like, and however the path going forward, you'll find more support, particularly in the corporate world, for what you're doing and making it happen and allowing it to happen. I think those voices are more important. There's an old saying that, you know, I'm probably butchering it a bit, but the night is the darkest just before the dawn, and you know, if that's the case and we're in the midst of the darkness trying to find our way out, you know, daylight is not far away, and
Sounds like you have a nice song idea there, Matthew.
That's where I stop. So somebody else takes on from there.
I was
But
gonna say, whenever you get any of those nice little quotes, just email it to me. I'll work with it. Just email it.
deal, they're yours. I can write it. I can't sing it or put it in lyrics.
You know what? Well, here's your Mississauga connection. The Mamas and Papas. Denny Doherty, who lived in Mississauga, has two beautiful kids that were raised here. He had a song, and the darkest night is just before dawn.
There you
It's
go.
one of the lyrics, so it's been done.
Maybe that's where I heard it. I don't know. I swear it was a kid's song that I heard or something like that. But
Oh, there you go.
but anyway, I want to thank you so much, not only for joining us here today. It's a little bit different than some of the things we normally have on Ask a Historian, but I really appreciate the time, the effort, the energy that you bring, the positivity of the message, and the work that you're doing. All kudos to you and thank you on behalf of, you know, just this one resident of Mississauga. I'm really appreciative of your work, and to kind of bring it back to the question we received that started all this from Abna. Looking back, you struck a memory and a chord with somebody a few years ago, and you know, they're reaching out to kind of connect, and hopefully they'll have that avenue back to now explore more of those connections and more of your music. And for anyone out there, I really encourage you to check out at the very least the song "We Are the North." Truly inspirational, and thank you to River North and Matt Zaddy and Heather Christine for doing that and continuing the work that you do, and taking the time to be with me here today. So I appreciate it greatly. Thank you.
No
Thank you
problem at
so
all.
much,
Thanks for having
Matthew.
us.
Be well and keep being creative. Thank you so much.
You got it.
Thank
Thanks, man.
you.